I know that some people have to leave throughout the meeting. Don't be embarrassed at all. You're welcome to stand up and leave at any time you need to. And we'll try to stick to 9 o'clock, and then it will close maybe with a prayer. And then if people want to linger for a while, not too long, we'll make ourselves available to you for questions. But we do have a few more questions here. Yeah. Did you want to share? Why don't you come on up? The second part to this one question about radioactive burns, radiation burns. There are nuclear medicines that will make you radioactive. So can charcoal help? The second application, yes. And that's been known since the early 1900s. You'd think that how could anybody know about that way back then? I'm just going to answer a few questions here. Microwaving charcoal. That could be a little dicey, but it's not going to get it that hard that it's going to ignite. So it's not going to ignite, but I will tell you that charcoal captures microwave. So in Korea, they make these little sachets. They put coconut charcoal in it, and they put it around their computers because they feel like they're getting too much exposure to microwave, and it will capture it. And as well as far infrared, captures that, and it also captures radiation. And as I mentioned, did I mention to you all that remember the radio announcer used to have this microphone in front of him, right? They still do, some of them. The old ones, I don't know about the new ones, but the old ones had activated charcoal in there to clean out dirty noise. Isn't that amazing? So today they use granular activated charcoal in some of the most sophisticated sound systems, very, very expensive sound systems that use charcoal to clean the noise, take out any background noise so that the sound is more clear and crisp. Isn't that amazing? All these different applications that commercial applications for charcoal. How do you preserve meat with charcoal? Well, I can just tell you that some meat companies, that's where I was going to go. Some meat companies are transporting meat will cover the animal with charcoal powder to keep it from putrefying. How do you preserve meat with charcoal? So obviously you want to follow proper hygienic rules, right? And keeping it away from moist heat where it's going to putrefy that much faster. So you want to keep it in a cool area, as dry as possible, but there are agencies that will do this. In fact, we have testimonies of a coroner back in the 1800s saying that when they were doing an autopsy, they would cover the corpse. When they brought the corpse into the courtroom, they would cover it with charcoal powder to mitigate all the odor, and that the jurors were able to, see the corpse and the wounds and so forth. But that actually goes way back. Goes back to ancient Egyptian times. You've heard about burying people mummifying them, right? Well, they started off by actually burying them in layers of sand and charcoal, and that would preserve them from rotting. So if it preserves dead people, what about preserving living people? Mummies as well. So it preserves dead mummies and living mummies, right? It's a win-win-win. Anyway, they continued the technique, and finally they actually isolated something from charcoal vinegar to make the embalming process. Fascinating. Where did they get the idea for that? I don't know, but also in ancient Egypt, they've been able to excavate pilings in the River Nile along the shoreline that have been scorched black by a fire on purpose and used as pilings, and they didn't rot. So if you go out into a forest where there's been a forest fire, and you'll see some trees that have been scorched, like the inside of that water barrel, they won't rot. They'll lay there for a lot longer than you and I are going to live. Right next to it, there'll be a stump that was just left over from cutting a tree down, has no charcoal on it, covered in fungus, and it's rotting before your eyes because charcoal is fiercely antibiotic and antifungal and antiviral for that matter. So that's why they use it in barrels, and that's why we can expect it to work on our body. We can expect it to work for preserving food. And in fact, in some areas, they do use charcoal in the fridges to control odor. And you'll see a lot of those fridgets and all kinds of retail products for that application. For before and after dental visit, is the charcoal slurry the same as was offered here? Yes. Yes. It's what you've been drinking. It's that simple. Can activated charcoal and or activated coconut charcoal be used for like applications? Is there a difference between the two? Can activated charcoal and or activated coconut charcoal? Okay, so I'm supposing what's being asked here, can the hardwood-based activated charcoal be used in similar applications as the coconut activated? You saw that we have two different jars, right? We have the blue one, which is coconut, and we have this one, this green one, which is hardwood. So this one is made out of coconut, this one's made out of hardwood, and they are interusable, but like Kimberly said, we've just come to find that for various reasons, we prefer to use the green one for external. It's less expensive, and I don't want to be spending the money on this blue one for just putting a charcoal poultice on my toe at night. I'd rather save that one for internal applications because it's a little bit more expensive and a little bit higher surface area, a little bit more activated. But push come to shove, I'd not only use either one of those, I'd grind up the charcoal from my fireplace, and I'd use that without a heartbeat. One of our customers is a manufacturer of animal feed nationwide, and this particular man asked to talk to me one day and said, you know, John, I learned about charcoal as a young boy from my father, and my father learned it from his father when he was in a concentration camp in Europe during the war. And I said, well, what's that all about? He said, well, after the war, my grandfather came back and told the family that if for any reason they were caught in a concentration camp and isolated, they needed to find themselves a stick of charcoal and keep that with them for all circumstances. Poisoning, sickness, infection. Well, I'm sure that they were cooking, they were burning something in the camps. I don't know, but he said basically to his father, you find, all of you, if this ever happens to you, find a charcoal stick, that's your medicine while you're there. And that is so true. You know, you're not going to have access to go down to the pharmacy or health food store and buy any kind of charcoal, right? It just might not be available. Maybe the town's been destroyed by a hurricane or tornado. What are you going to do? It's right there. We were invited to a survivalist camp meeting, and we were invited to, remember, just talk to all those kids? We had, I don't know, a couple dozen kids, and they're all just all over the place. They would not sit down. They would not listen. They were just everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And I thought to myself, this is not going to work. These kids are live wires. And the night before, they'd had a campfire. And I looked over there, and here's some charcoal sticks. So I went over there, and I picked up a charcoal stick, and I didn't say a word. I walked back where those kids were, and I started eating that charcoal stick. You could hear a pin drop. Their mouths dropped open, and I was chewing. And I was thinking to myself, whatever possessed you to do this? Anyway, answered that question, and it got their attention. And they were absolutely fascinated, and they asked to chew on the stick. This stick made the rounds. I should bring a charcoal stick in here and we could start it on the front row with you. Anyway, it worked. So even that will work. Yes, ma'am?
When you make the liquid, like the drink, how long is that good for?
You'd use it. Don't make it unless you're going to use it.
As you go. Don't make it
But
ahead of time.
having said that, everybody says having said that. Having said that, one of a friend of ours, her son had severe Crohn's disease. I mean, he'd be on the hospital emergency floor, doubled up in so much pain. And this had gone on for a long time. He was a young man. And she asked me, do you think it'll work? And I say, I'd be surprised if it didn't. And so she'd take a water bottle, like one of these that you buy in a store, and she made a beaker, like we had out here, and she made up a bunch of charcoal water, and then she poured it into these empty plastic water bottles and stuck them in the fridge. That was the end of it. That was the end of his symptoms. He was symptom-free the next day, and he would take a couple of those to work every day. Now, there's a reason for that, and I'm not sure that we're going to get to that right now, but again, I encourage you to either purchase the book and or go online. A lot of these stories that we're telling you are there with a little bit more detail or rationale behind them, so where you can study this out a little bit more, okay? So yes, you can put it away, like you're asking, and use it later, but why not just use it when you need it, right? Say that again. Here's I've got a few more, getting more questions that I can deal with here. These are all good questions. This is a prison in northern Uganda, and one of these people has HIV. And it's not the one on your, where am I? Are you seeing the yellow costumes? Okay. So it's not Carolyn, it's Baker who has it. Baker has HIV, and we're not divulging names because a little bird might tell somebody. But he's not only HIV positive, he's got a number of issues, including, I can't, it's not coming to my mind. Anyway, Carolyn and her husband were invited into prisons to teach reading and writing in the local dialect. And as a part of that program, they were also put on a one-day workshop on how to use charcoal. And when they came into the prison, she met this guy Baker, and his eyes were orange. Hepatitis was one of the issues, but that's not the one I'm thinking of. Anyway, he was very sick. They did not know he had HIV.
So you can see Carol.
Okay, so he was very sick, and he was wasting away, and Carolyn gave him a jar of home-ground charcoal powder, not activated charcoal, and gave it to him and said, start using this, and I think it'll help you. It helped. Almost within 24 hours, he started feeling better. His eyes cleared out, and he was looking so much better that the other prisoners asked what he was doing, and he told them, well, I'm taking this charcoal. Now here's this man in a prison with 900 men, and they asked for some of his charcoal. I know what I would have done. Right? I have a selfish, carnal heart, but not Baker. He started sharing it, and people started improving. They put on this workshop, and in another prison, they were invited to another prison, and you can imagine a men's latrine in Central Africa. It's probably not the most sanitary place on planet Earth. and they had 6 men in there who were going to die within the week from dysentery. The guards said they're not going to make it. They'd seen it too many times. Well, not only did they have severe dysentery, but the guards had it, and the warden had it as well. They all had, the whole prison was contaminated. And the guy down there on the ground 3 days before was one of those guys laying on the floor. They all recovered. He's still very weak, but he's pounding. We taught them, that Carolyn and her husband taught them how to grind the charcoal, sift it, and then make a powder and put it in a jar and drink it. Is that this expensive stuff here? No. Is God's arm shortened just because you can't get this stuff? God's arm is not shortened, but it's a lot more convenient. And I'll choose that, thank you. But he started they all recovered in 1 week from dysentery. And we supply, that's one of our outreaches. We supply charcoal to prisons in Africa, and they teach them how to grind charcoal. Now you can imagine every one of those inmates goes back to his village. They don't need Facebook, right? They don't need Twitter or X. They're teaching all the time. And you can be teachers in your own community, not just for yourself and your family, but you can tell your work associates and say, it worked. One treatment helped. And then it'll give you an opportunity to teach them about some of the other things that you learned here, not just charcoal, but other natural medicine. Now, you were going to come up and share something. Now, I just learned this evening. You told me that you have just been diagnosed with something. Are you willing to share that with the folks?
Yes, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Is that okay?
Yep, right too.
And I came in tonight a little early, and Kimberly put a poultice on, and it took the pain. I was in so much pain. Every time I ate, it would just double up. It hurt a lot worse when I ate. And so I came in and I was hurting, and she saw I kept holding myself. And she put a poultice on me, and I have no pain right now. It's still on.
Excuse me.
I don't care. I'm a nurse. I've seen way worse. Anyway, and tomorrow I get the stitches out of my face. I just had cancer taken out of my face. So they said they got it all. I hope they did. But I'm going to put some of that charcoal on it as soon as they take the stitches out. I'm going to put that cream on.
So that's a testimony. Who? For her? Who's it for? It's for you and for who else? Somebody else you know. And Kimberly's already talked about the man who had terminal pancreatic cancer. It's very, it's not a good prognosis, is it? No.
And it's very fast.
So, again, is it possible that something like as simple as this, that's used on the International Space Station and nuclear submarines and everything in between, might work for me? Is if it's that powerful that they use it in military first aid kits, that the WHO listed as an essential medicine, maybe it's good enough for some of these other ailments. And if it does no good, what? It's not going to add to your problem. And there's probably another God remedies out there that will work. Well, thank you so much.
It's a lot cheaper than the surgeries you'd have to go through, I'll tell you.
And you can pay me after the meeting. Thank you.
Can it also be used for esophageal and stomach cancer?
The question was, is it good for esophageal cancer and what?
Stomach cancer.
Stomach cancer. And anything from this point down to the other point, it will work. Whether it's Crohn's, irritable bowel, IBS, ulcerative colitis, peptic ulcers, hiatus hernia, gum disease, gingivitis, bad breath, one end to the other. For whatever reason, charcoal has a way of capturing the offending agents. It's not going to cure. I already mentioned that last night. We don't believe charcoal cures anything. What's it doing? What's it doing? It's removing what? Toxins. And then the body does what? Heals itself the way the Creator designed it to, right? So we're actually cooperating with our body so that then the body has more energy, to deal with the problem that charcoal can't deal with. Okay, so by removing this toxic overload from, in this case, cancers in the esophagus, is there debris from cancers? We're going to show you some debris from cancers. Can you, I hope I answer your question.
How much would you drink?
Well, Kimberly will tell you you can't take too much, but you can take too little, right? So that's her motto. As long as you take enough water, you're not going to overdose. So
There is a
You can do a
protocol
gargle?
back there.
a gargle and swallow.
There is a protocol back there, and it will cover, how to start slow and such like that. But yeah, just get the,
Is that the blue one?
charcoal protocol.
Is that the blue,
brochure?
back in the back? You probably all have got one. You can check that out. Let's go forward here. So here he is teaching more and more people were crowding around just like they were last night. Crowding around, they want to see this. Is it this possible? So this guy is giving his testimony of how he was in the men's latrine a few days earlier dying of dysentery, and now he's out grinding charcoal. So he's a living testimony. Charcoal in foods. I'm just going to breeze through a number of things now because we want to get to some of the more important stuff when we're running out of time. These are common foods that have, in Europe, Burger King bought charcoal from us to make burger buns for Halloween. But it's also, you'll go online, you'll see a lot more people experimenting with exotic foods or artisan breads and cookies. And in Japan, they actually make confectionaries, and so we sell a charcoal that's similar to what they use in Japan, and we use it for, what's it called? It's marketed separately. Is that the purple jar that you sell? We have 4 grades. One is cosmetic, and one's animal, and what's
Also the bamboo,
for?
cosmetics.
The bamboo is for cosmetic.
Purple one's culinary.
Culinary, that's the word I was looking for. So there's a lot of people out there who are making exotic foods, and we sold to the number 10 restaurant in the world, downtown Manhattan, until the New York Health Department says, no, charcoal absorbs nutrients, and you cannot put it in your food because your customers will become deficient. And I was thinking, well, they're serving alcohol, aren't they? Anyway, we sell charcoal to Israel for charcoal ice cream. Here is, Kimberly mentioned this earlier, the juice on your left-hand side is the same juice as the one on the right-hand side, only the one on the right-hand side has been put through a charcoal filter and to take out all the color. But you saw that it's also used to put charcoal coloring in food and take it out. So if it's done that way, it must be harmless, right? You're right. Most fine vegetable oils have been exposed to charcoal to take out bad odor, bad flavor, and bad color. You can imagine a room like this with olives, and there's not one bad olive in the whole bunch that's rancid. That's a little bit of a stretch. And so all these oils are cleaned or polished with charcoal. These are charcoal biscuits that were made during World War II, and they were advertised as a digestive. And the company is still working today, and they're called Bragg's Original Charcoal Biscuits under license from the Queen of England. Charcoal science. What is charcoal? It's wood burned in the absence of oxygen. These are beehive charcoal kilns in America, where they started using charcoal for smelting ore. Charcoal is made from peat, hardwood, coconut, bamboo, different grades of coal. Not all coal is created equal. There are certain coals that work better to create because it's a carbon product, right? Coal is pure carbon, and it can be made into an activated carbon. But because coal has this dirty reputation, most people, you're not going to usually see it in the marketplace for charcoal for human consumption. Yeah, but if it was up here and that's all I had, I would have no problem taking it. It's been converted to activated charcoal, and it will work. Kimberly's recently started purchasing pecan charcoal for who? A pencil company? I can't remember. She sells tons and tons of this stuff for pencil companies. Am I giving away a trade secret? No, don't anybody start competing, please. Graphite is a pure carbon, and so when you pull the pencil across the sheet, the layers of carbon slide off onto the sheet. It's a pure carbon product, but the layers are in planes. And then if you go to a diamond's a pure carbon product as well, a mineral. And you can see from the structure of the atoms, it's reinforced in every possible direction, making it one of the hardest elements on planet Earth. And then you have charcoal, and it really has no structure. It's what they call amorphous. It's more like a sponge. Now, if you can imagine, did I mention last night, 1 inch of wood has 1 cubic inch of wood. If you take the surface area, there's 8 square inches of surface area on the outside of that cube of 1 inch. If that was wood charcoal, there would be about 400 square meters. It was activated charcoal. Is this on here? 1 teaspoon of charcoal powder, if you could somehow magically unfold it, would be the size of a football field. Now, how do you get that into 1 tablespoon of charcoal powder, right? That's called marketing. This is a pore structure. There's different pore structures in the charcoal that allow certain size molecules in. Coconut absorbs smaller molecules, calls it, so it's microporous. Kimberly already mentioned mesoporous, which is a little bit bigger pores, and they accommodate bigger molecules and atoms. So they have a bigger reach than just coconut in some instances. Food poisoning, we've covered that. We've covered vomiting and diarrhea. And here's just some typical diseases that have, amongst everything else, they also have nausea and vomiting. So you have Teresa, that's one of the gifts that we get from going to visit Mexico, but it could be any country, right, where we're not used to the food and the water. How about cholera? I met a guy in Nepal, when I lived in Nepal, 24 hours he was dead. I didn't know. I liked the guy. I would have happily given him some charcoal, but I didn't know, and he was 24 hours. HIV, we've talked about that. Spanish flu, you can see that amongst everything else, fever and headache, that also has vomiting and diarrhea. Asian flu, COVID, and then there's these guys. What are they doing? How many millions of years of evolution would that take? She doesn't like that joke. So these monkeys will come down out of the trees and they'll go to the charcoal makers and they will steal. I mean, the BBC has pictures of them if you go online. And these monkeys will come down and steal charcoal and go back to the woods and they'll fight over the biggest piece and chew it. Why on earth would monkeys want to steal charcoal? Pardon?
They know it's good for them.
How did they learn this? I don't know. But anyway, the people don't know it, but the monkeys do. And what happens is that it's a certain tribe of monkeys in Zanzibar off the east coast of Africa. And for some reason, they discovered that when they eat mango leaves and almond leaves, which are very high in protein, they get indigestion. And of course, at that point, you need charcoal. Now, where they made that connection, I'm not sure. But some dumb monkey must have chewed on a charcoal stick sometime for a charcoal demonstration for his kids. And they learned, oh, wow, that really works. And forever after, that particular tribe of monkeys is the only tribe that eats charcoal and they have higher live birth weights than any other tribe of that particular group of monkeys. And they have more robust young monkeys and healthier. So, do you have charcoal in your house? The difference, we've been mentioning this word absorb, but sometimes, or adsorb. So what's the difference? When you eat a lemon meringue pie, you're absorbing it. But if you have it thrown on your face, you're adsorbing it. And charcoal adsorbs poisons to its surface. And once it grabs one, it will not let it go until it eliminated from the body together. Pharmaceutical drugs are all cleaned with charcoal. Nutraceuticals are largely cleaned with charcoal. Air scrubbers for power plants, coal-fired power plants use carbon filters. Nuclear submarines, they have to take out the carbon dioxide in a nuclear submarine, and so they use giant scrubbers with activated charcoal. HEPA air filters, hybrid electric cars and their fuel cells. Here's a World War I and II canister mask using coconut-activated charcoal. In the Iranian War, here's the contemporary soldiers with the same masks, only their military gear is also layered with charcoal for nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare. And this young nurse over here on the right-hand side is wearing one of the masks that we sell. And that mask does everything that canister mask does. It just is not as close-fitting and tight as the canister mask is. So it would not be suitable for an EPA regulation. But these things for people with chronic chemical sensitivities, MCP, who have these multiple sensitivities, they purchase these masks when they go in, and they'll wear them when they go into the large box office stores where there's a lot of aerosols and so forth in the air, and they're able to function. Spacesuits, medicinal charcoal past, mummifying dead people. Here's a burnt tree with no fungus really growing on it, and a stump not far away that's almost back to ashes. Here's anthrax and gangrene. I've seen these. I haven't seen anthrax, but gangrene we've been exposed to. And it will stop an infection a couple hours. It won't heal up overnight. It's not going to heal in 2 hours. The infection will stop in a couple hours. Charcoal mixed with breadcrumbs or yeast has long been a favorite material for forming poultices among Army and Navy surgeons, who all knew that, right? All you nurses knew that? I didn't know that. The charcoal poultice has also obtained a high character in hospital practice as an application in sloughing ulcers and gangrenous sores, and recently, this substance has afforded immense relief in numerous cases of open cancer. We'll show you some. By soothing pain, correcting fetor, the odor, and facilitating the separation of the morbid structure from the surrounding parts, it is unnecessary to mention other instances of its utility, for in this form, charcoal is now admitted into the London Pharmacopoeia, and it is in general use in all naval, military, and hospitals, civil hospitals. When was this written? 1857. What happened? Where did this miracle thing disappear? Marketing. Marketing took over. And so we're counter-marketers. We're trying to show people that not just charcoal, there are other things, and you're going to learn this if you come back to this herbal program, right? You're going to learn other things. Keep coming to these programs that this church is offering. They're priceless. If you had to pay for this, it's going to take you a long time. So make yourself available of it. One of the most beneficial remedies is pulverized charcoal placed in a bag and used in fomentations. That's a hot, moist towel. This is a most successful remedy. If wet in smartweed boiled, it is still better. I told you about smartweed. You can look it up on the internet, and you'll find it out in your garden. I have ordered this in the cases where the sick were suffering great pain, and when it has been confided to me by the physician that he thought it was the last before the close of life, Then I suggested the charcoal, and the patient slept, and the turning point came, and the recovery was the result. Now, this is a key phrase here. This is such a key phrase. To students when injured with bruised hands and suffering with inflammation, this was written in 1897. Now, how did this person possibly know this? I have prescribed this simple remedy with perfect success. The poison of inflammation was overcome, the pain removed, and healing went on rapidly. What causes inflammation? A poison. And when you hear the word poison, you should automatically think of the greatest poison absorber in the world, and that is charcoal. It may not work, but you should automatically think, if I'm dealing with a toxin, I should be thinking of an antitoxin, and that's charcoal, whether it's in the emergency room or in your home. Now, there's too much material here, so I'm going to have Kimberly come up, and we're going to go over some of these pictures. I'm going to move ahead here. Oh, by the way, charcoal is not burnt toast. I don't care what your grandma said. It's not. It's not a cure-all, and it's not charcoal briquettes. All these different applications, we're just going to go through these here. There are more than we can number. Kentucky Poison Control Center says every home should have charcoal for accidental poisoning. Save the State. Here's a short list of some drugs that are absorbed by charcoal. We had a phone call. A young guy phoned and said, "Will charcoal absorb THC?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Thank you." Click. Then the mother called, and she was a little bit more worried. She says, "Will charcoal help with THC?" And I said, "Yes." She said, my son has a urine test in 30 minutes. Will it work? And I'm thinking, this is a moral dilemma. This is a moral question here. Maybe this young fella needs some quiet time, and thinking time. But God's been very gracious with me in my life. Undeserved grace. And I said to that poor mother, I said, "Yeah, I think it'll work." "How much?" "Lots." "Well, how much is lots?" "Lots." You figure that one out. Called me a week later and she said he passed the test. Now that's more than just charcoal working there. There's a little bit other chemistry going on. I'm sure Mother's prayers are lingering in the courts of heaven long after she's gone to her dusty bed. Those prayers are still there working, right? Oh, thank God for mothers. Mercury amalgam. A lot of this stuff, again, is on the website. We're talking about charcoal. I'm not going to get there, but I draw a parallel between charcoal and Christ. Christ absorbs our sins. Sin is a poison. Charcoal absorbs poisons. Charcoal is not changed. Its nature is not changed by taking all these poisons on. It's still charcoal. It forever will be charcoal. It doesn't change. And this is the mystery that Jesus can take on my sins, and they don't change him. He's still pure. He's my Savior. Amen. So, I love these parallels that are available to us, but we see them every day sometimes in front of our face, and we never stop to think, can I use this thing? Oh, charcoal and cholesterol and triglycerides. This is reported in The Lancet. The Lancet is not the National Enquirer when you're checking out at the grocery store. The Lancet is a premier medical journal in England. And here's giving a report. This is not the first one. This is not the middle one, and it's not the latest one. This one was 1986. 2 tablespoons. How much? 2 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons of charcoal powder. How often? For how long? Will do what? Lower total cholesterol, 25%. There's not a limit-reducing drug on the market that can do that. Not only that, somehow charcoal knows which one to go after. Which one does it go after? The low-density lipoprotein. Why not the HDL? How does it know? How does it know to go after the wrong one? And reverse the ratio so it doubles the HDL-LDL ratio. That's exactly what you want to do. How does it know to do that? Total triglycerides down 76%. Okay, that's in the Lancet. That's not National Enquirer. That's not John Dinsley. I've already discussed that one. This is one of my mentors, Dr. Agatha Thrash, medical examiner, state of Georgia. Charcoal has amazing healing properties. Let's see if I can find this quote. Is it? Oh, dropitis. Got to read this one. Oh, that's urinary tract infection. Oh, I should read that one. My little grandchild accidentally sat down on a hill of fire ants. Instantly, hundreds of fire ants began biting her. She screamed hysterically from the intense pain. We grabbed her, stripped off her clothing, and ran for a bathtub. As it filled with water, I added charcoal. After being submerged in that charcoal for less than 2 minutes, she stopped crying. Have anybody been bitten by a fire ant here? One of those little guys hurts. I can hardly imagine 100 of them. She stopped crying. I'm sure Grandma stopped crying too. The charcoal neutralized the poison and her pain was gone. Charcoal has amazing healing properties. In fact, if I were stranded on a desert island and could take only one thing along to protect me from pain, disease, infection, and injury, I would choose charcoal. Now here's a woman who has access to any drug on the market, and she would choose charcoal. You know what I would choose? I wouldn't choose charcoal. Now you are thinking. I would ask for waterproof matches. I could cook my fish, and I could send up smoke signals when they came looking for me, right? But you have the idea. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Just mentioning Dr. Agatha Thrash reminded me of a testimony that she had shared with us one time that I think maybe you guys need to hear. This young man was in a motorcycle accident without his helmet and was brain damaged. And he was in the hospital, and he was in a coma, and he wasn't coming to. So finally, after a few months, the hospital staff went to the mother and said, he needs to go to a nursing home. There's nothing more that we can do for him. And she just literally begged them that she could take him home, and they said no. And she said, I'll set up my living room, and it'll just be like the hospital room. And she just literally worked with them that, please let me bring my son home. And finally they agreed. So they brought him home one day. She had everything set up. And once the medical staff all left, okay, she took all of his bandages off his head, and she put a very large charcoal poultice over his eyes and over his head, okay? That evening, he opened his eyes, okay? And then she just kept it up, started making noises, started talking a few words. In about a week, he was talking, okay? He is now married with children. And so we can't give up, okay? So this was months of just being in like a coma, and there's nothing more we can do. But maybe there is, and we should never give up on people.
Right, and ourselves, right? I mean, we may have a broken body, we may have a broken mind, or we may have a broken heart, but there is a remedy somewhere. There is a remedy. We are not to give up. I was in a car dealership. It's 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. Well, that is if you're in Tennessee time. We're in Nebraska, so we're fine. I was in this car lot, and the guy, what do you do for a living? I said, charcoal. He said, that is so amazing. I said, why? He said, last night I watched the new movie Ben-Hur. I said, okay, good for you. He said, they used charcoal on one of the horses. I said, you're kidding. I don't remember. I watched the original half a century ago. And I said, I don't remember that. Well, it's the new one. Really? So I went online and I typed in Ben-Hur charcoal. And sure enough, up it came. And they got a short sequence in that they show these 5-second bites of different parts of movies. And it said, the horse has farcy. And farcy is a horse disease where it affects it's like Pseudomonas. It's a very, very aggressive bacterial infection. It infects the skin and can also affect the lymph glands. And the horse doesn't always die, but it's basically put out of commission. So I thought, well, what else? I'm not really promoting them, but one of our customers is Hollywood, and they use it in The Walking Dead. I don't know what for, but anyway, they roll in it. That's what we were told. We give them bone char, not the good stuff. And so anyway, lo and behold, here's this series called Heartland. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it before, but it's a favorite series. And this young couple are out camping, and they catch this wild colt that's been caught in a snare, and it's left a scar around it. It's bleeding, it's infected, and they're out camping, and what are we going to do? And the young girl says, well, my mother used to use charcoal, maybe it'll work. And this young fellow doesn't know anything. He ends up becoming a veterinarian using his other stuff. But anyway, in this movie, she said, let's try it. He says, why not? So they go to the fire pit, get some charcoal, he's grinding it up, and she goes and they had some olive oil. I think that's what they had. And here's the young colt. And here they are grinding up a charcoal and putting in olive oil. And they make this charcoal poultice, and they put it on a cloth, and they put it on the colt, and they wrap it, and a few days later they let it go. It's already healing. Now, whether that was effects, I don't know. But I thought, isn't that amazing? And then I found out that they also used charcoal as a drench on a horse that had been eating roadside grass along a highway that had been sprayed with herbicide. And it was failing. And so they drenched it. I thought, charcoal's in Hollywood, Wow, it's the big time now. And teeth, colicky baby, pink eye. That was a worker a contractor came to him to the property, and he said nothing was working. His eyes were so inflamed. He said, I'm in so much discomfort. It's just I can't even talk. And I gave him one of these eye masks, and the next day he said, I cannot believe that. I want to buy some more. And he bought some for his brother and for his neighbor, and he is sold on charcoal. Poison ivy, wasp stings, ant stings, poisonous snakes. Poisonous snakes, if you do a poisonous snake, you have to do it every hour for 24 hours. Or 12 hours, 1 hour for 12 hours, and then go to 2 hours, every 2 hours. You'll read it in the book. I might have this wrong, and Kimberly might have it right. But read it in the book or go online. It'll be there for you. This is a brown recluse spider. How big is a spider? Anybody know? They're not that, they're fairly small. We're getting there. We're getting closer. This guy, what's going to happen? What's the treatment of choice on the bottom of that screen? What's the treatment of choice? Conventional therapy is you take that thumb off and you take most of the fleshy mound all the way down to the wrist. That's the treatment, typical treatment. But this man was fortunate enough to contact Uchee Pines, and the doctor suggested emphasized charcoal, and he was able to save his hand, and he arrived at the facility sometime later and showed them he only had a very small scar left. Anthrax, we've been through this. Sepsis. Making a poultice. Where is it, Kimberly? Hang on here. Let me go find this. This is taking too long. Okay, it starts here. It's right after this one, Kimberly. So we'll come on, play. Okay, so this Doberman has a cancer in so much pain it cannot walk. And we took some ACE activated carbon cloth. It's not sterilized cloth. We wrapped that wound, and this is short. 2 hours later, it was able to walk. And 4 weeks later, the wound that has never healed over is healed over. Wound dressings, here is a severe pressure sore. And 3 months later, it's all filled in by just using this non-sterilized activated carbon cloth, which is Johnson & Johnson sells a wound dressing called Actisorb Silver. And we sold the same product until we were forbidden by the manufacturer to not compete. So it works. It works very well. Okay, go for it.
Oh, that's the horse one.
Yeah. And we have the dog one coming up. Is anybody, if anybody
Feel
needs
free to
go,
leave,
if
really.
anybody needs to go, is it okay to hang out here a little bit longer? Please.
10 minutes. Okay. Well, I'll have to go really quick on this one. This horse they knew it was bit by a brown recluse. It was their baby. The vet started treating it with antibiotics, and they wanted to use colloidal silver as well, but nothing was working. They called me on day 7, and we overnighted the vet detox, and since the antibiotics weren't working, I said, you need to give it to him internally. And then they just made a gel like we've been doing in the poultice, but they just packed it. So
You could look right down the windpipe
Yeah.
into the chest cavity.
Yeah, so anyway, so they got it on day 8, and they started working on it. So already, even though it looks gross, it's actually showing healing on 10 and 11. And so here you look at day 12, all the granulation, day 15. So from the day they started using it was day 8, okay, because they started taking pictures right away, and this go to the very end. What they were really shocked, they didn't expect the hair to be growing back like it did. And so go to day 21, is it? Or
So there you go between day 10 and day 19.
that's the difference. And just,
Yeah, I've gone through them already.
do we have that?
They don't have day 21 on this
Okay,
one.
so anyway, by day 21, there's just a picture of her with showing it, and it's almost can't even see it anymore. So it's just
We've already
amazing.
talked about our dog and
Yeah.
poisoning. She's run through barbed wire fences, 36 stitches, and this one in the corner is 6 days later by using charcoal poultice. This time she caught the skunk. And
More than once. Not too
and
bright.
She got a charcoal bath.
Okay,
Okay.
now this is Barney, and this is an amazing story. Barney was trespassing, and he was a big dog, 150 pounds, and the neighbor shot him, and it just went through his ear, didn't hit his brain, and they brought him to the vet, and she just
Saved his life.
stitched him up and sent him home. Well, it wasn't over. The troubles just began because he broke out with pseudomonas, okay? And we would be seeing Dr. Regina on our walks in the morning, and she had mentioned the dog, and he was getting worse and worse. And they had sent in a culture and to the university, and they just said, oh, put him down. There's only like one human drug that is for the pseudomonas like this bad. And he said, it's not going to work. Just put him down. Well, she wasn't that not willing to do that. And so she talked to after doing some talking with us and would charcoal work and blah, 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 she talked to the owners and asked about using the charcoal, and she actually had the owners put the dog in her name. So she was going to experiment with the charcoal, and she didn't want to be held responsible if whatever went wrong. And so anyway, they asked if I would come over, and I brought one of my employees with me. We did not touch the dog or anything like that. We just guided him through what to do. And all we did was we got some aloe vera gel. We didn't actually use this one. I had a big jug of the kind that you drink. And so we used that with the Vet Detox. And we added, usually I prefer coconut oil when I add an oil to the charcoal to keep it moist, but we didn't have enough, so we just went to the store and got some olive oil. Okay, we live in a really small town and things are limited. So anyway, they were mixing it up, and they shaved the dog.
No, first they anesthetize the dog because it becomes vicious. You
Yes.
don't want anybody near it, touching it.
He had, he was getting mean because he was in so much pain. And then they shaved him, and they started to just literally cover his entire body.
Now, why would she use aloe vera? It's a great healer. Did you ever hear of Alexander the Great? The great conqueror who conquered the known world? His number one remedy for all of his battle wounds and burns and everything else, his number one remedy was aloe vera. They would have wagon loads that they would carry out live aloe vera plants with them on their military campaigns. And so you're seeing we're not just focusing on charcoal. There are other remedies that you can use. And in this case, Kimberly's decided to use charcoal with what? Aloe vera.
Aloe vera gel. And so anyway,
There's this burn case, right?
he was totally covered. By this time, so he was dying, and he was going fast, and he had already lost over 50 pounds. And he was so weak, they weren't even sure if he was going to make it through the night. But anyway, he woke up in the morning, and he was hungry, okay? And he was there for quite a few weeks. They would, I would have probably just rinsed him a little bit and put more on, but they did more of a thorough cleaning with him and then reapplied the charcoal. And they would send him home finally, and then he would break out with hot spots. Now this dog, this is after all his treatments. This is not a before picture. This is an after picture of what he looked like. And he was actually a much better dog after this whole fiasco. And we actually got a blessing out of this, another blessing, because the owner's daughter came to work with us because they were so impressed.
Well, we have to break this off, but as I've mentioned more than once, we have a website, charcoalremedies.com. There's the book, and you can go on there and you can review this material and a lot more material. You'll probably read other stuff that's posted on the internet. Do your own research, do your own investigation, and do your own experimentation. And I always encourage people to offer a prayer. It's not going to hurt either. And as we close, are you going to offer a prayer for us this evening?
I can.
Can you do that for us? Okay.
Thank you, Lord, for all the things that we've learned tonight. Help us remember the things that you know that we'll need in the future. And thank you for making things that will help us help ourselves. And we pray that you'll keep us all safe as we return to our homes.